email address per household. You can only vote once under one email address. If that happens, you can come here, or the temple can send you, we still have plenty of time, a ballot to vote by mail, because you can only get one email pin. That's a voting security issue. It's not because they're trying to make your life hard. And the ballot has 2 pages. One is the actual voting, and the other is a page of instructions. So if you happen to be here and you hand somebody a ballot, please make sure you give them 2 pages. The other thing is there's a link to go to after you vote. If you haven't done it already, but you already voted, please report your vote to the URJ. They're doing exit polling, and they're grading Temple Beth-El. We have a goal, and in order to meet that goal, they have to get the numbers. So we have a goal, and our goal privately here is 100%. Our informal goal is something lower, and I'm not even going to tell you what the number is. So, so please you can also have your family vote. If you have a child that's turning 18 by June 30th, they can vote. You don't have to be a temple member to vote, but we do want people who are going to vote reform. That's item number 3 on the ballot. All you have to do is tell them that. That's it. Any questions on that?
Yeah, how do you tell the URJ that you voted?
There's a link. If I don't have it memorized, if you go to the temple e-letter and you click on those links, the link is there to report your vote. The cards with the QR code is just the QR code to get you to the site to vote, but it doesn't give you the reporting thing. The URJ came out with that after, so that QR code doesn't help you. But you can just get it with the Vote for Reform, or you can get it from our temple website. Any other questions?
Is there a number target as opposed to a percentage?
There is a number target. Our number here is 100%. I just said I'm not giving you the lower target. Our target is 100%. So if you find out that somebody didn't vote, ask them to vote. Okay. Enjoy the program.
Thank you, Beth.
I have the great pleasure of introducing my friend and colleague, Rabbi Kinneret Shiryon, to welcome you to our temple here in Hillsborough. Just a pretty brief word about it. Formally, I'd like to say that Rabbi Shiryon was the first woman to function as a rabbi in the history of the state of Israel. I've said it a number of times the last few weeks, but she is an historic figure. She also has, what's the word? She's done something that is remarkable. She's not only an author of books and many articles, but she actually went to the land of Israel to create something new. It says in Genesis that Abraham and Sarah went and they created a soul. They created souls. And everyone asked, like, what does that mean, to create a soul? God creates souls. But Rabbi Shiryon has created the soul of liberalism and reform in particular in the state. And that makes her more than just a speaker, more than a historical. She is a pioneer. She's a pioneer. And that is something that is very special for someone to go to a new place, start from ground zero. And the community that she's created numbers 1,000 families now. She's actually the person who's fought the battles. So she can speak not just from an institutional level. This is, what we created, but every moment, every case brought to finally the Supreme Court of Israel. She's the person who can tell you from the ground level what it means to be a pioneer and to fight those fights. So she happens to be a really fine speaker as well. How many people were here Friday night? Raise your hand if you were. Okay, I don't actually have to say anything about that. You know that, and it's my great pleasure to welcome Rabbi Shiryon.
It's great to see familiar faces already and to be back here. My talk today is really going to be about the importance of voting. And it's not just you voting, it's having ripples. You are now going to become delegates to make sure that your family and friends and everybody you know who's above the age of 18 to do this vote, because just as Beth-El has made their goal for 100%, boy, would that be amazing if we had the entire liberal community in North America 100% vote for the reform slate. It could really change history. The last few Shabbatot, many of my colleagues gave sermons about a single man responsible for the design, construction, and oversight of the Mishkan, the tabernacle carried by the Israelites during their journey to the Promised Land. His name was Beth-El. He was a multi-talented artist. His name literally means in the shadow of God, Beth-El. He was creative. He was attentive. He was accomplished. The renowned International Academic Institution of Art and Design in Jerusalem, can you guess what its name is? Beth-El. One of my daughters is a graduate of the Beth-El Institution of Art. It really is known all over the world. The name also has a connection to the word tzlil. This is what I love about the Hebrew language. You can just break it down and make all these wonderful connections. So if you listen to the word Beth-El, you hear it's tzlil. What is tzlil? It means sound or tone, alluding towards diversity, because there's not just one sound and one tone in our world, right? So Beth-El allowed the artisans to do their work, each one according to their special talents. That's Hashra'at Ha'el. That is Beth-El walking in the shadow of God. Hashra'at Ha'el is that divine sense of influence. Another word hidden in this gifted man's name is litzlol. Litzlol means to dive deep. Tzolalan is a deep diver, right? A scuba diver? Scuba diver. He dove deep into his own vision of the Mishkan and allowed those collaborating with him the same opportunity to delve into their visions, creating a tabernacle of beauty and reflecting the diversity of the people. What a perfect name for the architect of such a significant project. But the word I want to emphasize in Beth-El's name is tziltzul, which means ring, chime, or call. 128 years ago, the first Zionist Congress was called by Benjamin Ze'ev Herzl in 1897 in Basel, Switzerland. This was the first official tziltzul, the first official call to establish a Jewish national homeland since the end of Jewish sovereignty 2,000 years before, after the destruction of the Second Temple in 70 CE. Just think about that. It's mind-blowing. After Herzl's declaration, 51 years later, the State of Israel came to be. Today, more than half the world's Jews reside in the only Jewish country on our planet. The World Zionist Congress allots considerable funding to promote Jewish life in Israel and in the diaspora. As non-Israeli citizens, your vote is a singular way you can influence the direction of the Zionist movement and advocate for an Israel that reflects the values of Jewish life, which are under threat in the present Israeli government. All adults, anyone over the age of 18, can vote for their values. Let the tziltzul of your voice ring true. Casting a ballot costs $5, which covers election expenses. 22 ideological slates appear on the ballot. You understand that the slates that are on the ballot, they reflect also the political parties that are in Israel, right? And even though the Reform movement is not a political party in Israel, we have a presence in that country, as you have heard from me. By choosing to vote the Reform slate, which is number 3 on the ballot, don't get confused, number 3, you are voting for your values. The Reform representatives you send to the World Zionist Congress will influence policies and allocate a $1 billion annual budget that affects Israeli society and Jews around the world. When you vote, it's not just about funding specific positions. It's about having our tziltzul, our voices, ringing and reclaiming Zionism as a movement that champions equality, justice, freedom, diversity, and peace. Building a better future means fostering understanding, partnership, and hope for all who live in Israel and for those who support her around the globe. Israel is facing difficult challenges, as you in the United States are facing your own challenges. In Israel, the unyielding threats to the judicial system, coupled with the tragic events of October 7th and their aftermath, have shown us just how fragile democracy can be and how important it is to ensure that Israel remains a place of freedom, equality, and justice for all of its citizens. Meanwhile, the alarming rise of anti-Semitism worldwide further teaches us that what happens in Israel profoundly affects Jews everywhere. We are so interconnected. Even when we don't want to be, we are. The World Zionist Congress elections represents a crucial crossroads. Those who seek to undermine the pluralism and inclusivity that we value so dearly are well organized, motivated to influence the future of Israel. Their agenda seeks to marginalize the Reform movement, challenge the rights of LGBTQ individuals, weaken gender equity, erase religious pluralism, and obtain exemptions from military service for their constituency. Helping Israelis to secure exemptions from the draft violates the spirit of the ideological platform of the World Zionist movement and impairs Israel's democratic values. If they succeed in any of these attempts, it will be a major setback for all of us. In these complex times, we know that shared society is not only vital to our future, it is also meaningful for us in our present circumstances. The collapse of the ceasefire in Gaza, the resumption of war, the devastating loss of more lives, and the remaining 24 living hostages still held in unimaginable conditions weigh heavy on so many of us. I, like many others in Israel and around the world, am dismayed and fearful about what this indicates about those in power and its implications for the country's future and coexistence. I quote my friend and colleague, Anna Kislansky, the CEO of the Israel Movement for Progressive Judaism, and you're going to hear from Yair also after my remarks and your questions. She eloquently and accurately describes our present situation in Israel, and I quote, "While lives hang in the balance, the present government of Israel continues to undermine the very foundations of Israeli democracy, attempting to fire the head of the Shin Bet, that's the Shirut HaBitachon HaKlali, the Israel Security Agency, attacking the Attorney General and the Supreme Court, both entrusted with safeguarding the rule of law. This is not governance. It is a path toward political persecution and the dismantling of democracy as we know it. It is a red line we cannot afford to cross." And I say kol hakavod to Anna for putting those words in front of us. The Israel Reform Movement urges the Israeli government to act responsibly and democratically by returning to a ceasefire and resuming negotiations immediately. We stand with a very diverse Israeli public and the hostages' families in protest. It is our collective responsibility and moral obligation for each other, for the country, and for the future of the State of Israel. Our work for democracy and shared living matters now more than ever. We must remain focused on and committed to the future we are striving to build together. First of all, you have to feel that you are not powerless. We are not powerless. The World Zionist Congress is not just symbolic. It is a conduit for bringing about real change. By increasing our delegates, we will influence funding decisions that support the causes we care about most. For you living outside of Israel, you have a vehicle to guarantee that the shared values of inclusivity, pluralism, freedom of expression, and equality before the law remain steadfast. A meaningful and significant way for you to help is to vote for the reform slate in the World Zionist Congress elections. Let your unique tziltzul, your voice, ring true for pluralism, equality, and justice in Israel, to ensure that our shared values shape the future of the Jewish people, here and around the globe. You can directly influence Israel's democratic character and institutions. From my perspective, you will be fighting for the soul of the state that I love so deeply and am fighting for from within to save it from descending into tyranny. We are really on a precipice. Precipice. It only takes a few minutes, and your voice, your tziltzul, will be heard loud and clear throughout the Jewish world. Once every 5 years, Jews all over the world have the right and civic duty to cast their votes in the World Zionist Congress elections and make reform voices heard loudly and clearly in Israel and throughout the Jewish world. Just as Beth-El sounded his voice, his tziltzul, which allowed the people to delve into their decisions, we too must sound our tziltzul, to be clear about our vision of a society in Israel where the voice, and I repeat, of democracy, pluralism, equality, justice ensures the future of the State of Israel and of the Jewish people around the world. Every vote counts. You need to vote. You need to encourage your family to vote, your close friends, your broader circle of friends, your acquaintances and their families and their friends. Your action, your tziltzul, your unique contribution will make a difference.
There's some time for some questions. Rabbi Shiryon has, focused on the vote itself today and made such an important point that we are connected, and we know from October 7th that what happens in Israel affects Jews around the world. We'd like to open it. Thank you.
For our recording.
Yes. Okay. I will be careful. Anyhow, but in terms of the questions, Rabbi Shiryon has had her own experiences also as a leader, a reform leader in Israel, has a personal story, an institutional story. I mentioned that the institution she created, Yozma, is a picture of which is hanging up on our wall in the hallway a few feet away. So just to open it up to questions at this moment, who would have a question on any of these particular levels of experience?
Thank you so much for being here this morning and this weekend with us. I was wondering if you could give us maybe more of a historical perspective on the evolution of pluralism or the lack of pluralism in Israel. When I first went to Israel in the 80s, I didn't sense this feeling of being a Reform Jew and being a distinct underrepresented minority. And yet when I went back, 20 years later, I felt that way.
Yes.
And like in the United States, things have changed, and I understand that. But I was wondering if you could help us understand why, what is the objective of sort of stamping out the Reform Judaism voice and values? And where do you see that connecting or changing as we go forward?
Okay. I did address this question yesterday at our meeting in Westfield. Reform Judaism in Israel has made great strides. And I think it's pretty miraculous, the strides we've made working under shoestring budgets for years and years and years, being under what I call successful Orthodox brainwashing of the secular population in the country. Over the years, the fact that Israel's a coalition government, and every government they bow to the smaller parties to order to create that coalition. To do that, there's payback, right? So sometimes those parties, not even sometimes, always those parties, they can gather strength beyond even their numbers because they're in a unique position to keep up government together. So how does that play out? It plays out in many ways. The Orthodox movement in Israel is supported by the government. Their rabbi salaries are paid by the government. Their congregations are supported by the government. Till we had our case in the Supreme Court, only Orthodox synagogues were built with funding by the government. Plus, I would say that when I talked about this kind of psychological brainwashing, secular Israelis, even to this day, and even though we've made great inroads and great successes, and the larger Israeli secular population is more aware of who we are and what we stand for, and all of those things are fantastic, you still have this mentality that the only authentic form of Judaism is orthodoxy. And I tell this story. I like to tell this story. I told it also yesterday, that when I first came to Israel, and I was the rabbi of the Kilat Ramat Aviv, the congregation in northern Tel Aviv, I'd have a bar mitzvah ceremony at the congregation, and there would be lots of family and friends that came from places that had never been to a Reform congregation in their lives. And they would come up to me, and they'd say, "Oh, Rabbi, we are so overwhelmed by this experience that we had, sitting together as a family, you announcing the page numbers. We knew where we were in the Siddur. The melodies were really lovely. Your talk was contemporary and relevant, even though you connected it to the text." And they were giving lots of compliments, and they said, "But when our son becomes a bar mitzvah, we're going to do it the right way." What does that mean? The right way. It means going to an Orthodox congregation. Now, I believe that mentality has changed in a lot of ways, and I'll tell you why. Because after many years of doing thousands of bar and bat mitzvah ceremonies, mostly bar mitzvah ceremonies, but that's another subject, talking about how what the influence of the Orthodox on Israeli society is so strong psychologically. But that, again, that's another conversation. When I was at Yozma, which was many years after, and after we had been functioning for several years, let's say about a dozen years or so, I had somebody come up to me and say, it was basically the same thing: "Wow, this was an amazing experience, sitting together as a family, singing these beautiful songs. The prayer became relevant. We never prayed like this before," and on and on and on. And then they would say to me, "I'm so sorry our son didn't become a bar mitzvah here." That's progress. Another interesting thing I like to say about the change in terms of pluralism, what have you, is that when somebody says, they used to say the synagogue I refuse to step into is an Orthodox one. When I hear the synagogue I refuse to step in now is a Reform one, I said, we've made progress. Over the years, we have had a great influence. I had just read last week that at one point, I remember when we got up to 2% of people in Israel who identified as Reform Jews. 2%, that's like, wow. We're up to 6%. that say that they identify as Reform Jews. And I don't remember the exact numbers of the article. I think it was like 47 or 48%. Maybe Yael knows this. He can like pull this out of the hat when he talks. But that say that if they were to go to a synagogue, they'd want to go to like a Reform synagogue. So you can see the great inroads that we've made. But we still have this psychological barrier. It's profound. And you see it everywhere. So we still have a long way to go.
Very good. Do we have okay, you're on.
So, one of the things that we've been told also on trips to Israel and within the congregation of our former rabbi, well, retired rabbi, I want to say, it's more than that. It would be good for people to understand what happens with burials, marriage, and those life cycle events other than bar bat mitzvah
Right.
that are really very personal.
Right.
And particularly the burial, I found could be very, very emotionally difficult. So if
It
you
is.
could,
It is. I
reflect
can
on
tell
that.
you from my own. If we work from the example of burials, I have many stories about burying people in Israel. I am privileged to live in Modi'in. Modi'in is one of the few Chevra Kadishas in the entire country that basically has respect for the Reform rabbis that function in the city. And respect for families, secular families that don't want to have any kind of religious burial, but they want to write their own, call it a secular burial and what have you. And that's phenomenal. And I pray that all the Chevra Kadisha would be like the one that we have. And I believe the man that I had a personal connection with, who was doing it for many years, he's not as, he's kind of stepped back, but because he created this pluralistic and respectful, dignified relationship in the city, it's being maintained even further, even when he'll be gone, I believe it'll still be that way in Modi'in. Who knows, but for now, that's how it is. In most of the other cities, it's not like that. The first time I had to bury somebody, when I was a young rabbi at Keilat Ramat Aviv, I really was young, I said to the family this, because I wanted to be able to be there for the family when they needed me the most. I said, please tell the member of the Chevra Kadisha who was responsible for the burial that there would be a close family friend, I didn't say for them to call me the rabbi, a close family friend who wants to give a eulogy. And when I said a close family friend, in Hebrew, you have male and female. And I said, be sure to repeat the word, Yesh chavera tova, he rotza latet et hesped. She wants to give the hesped. So it'd be very clear that it'd be a woman who'd be giving, because I didn't want controversy. I wanted to be able to be there for the family, and I didn't care that I wasn't at the point where I had to put my, first of all, I wore a kippah. I didn't hide the fact that I was wearing a kippah, but I didn't say anything. I wasn't wearing a placard. I wasn't out there on the front that I'm a woman rabbi, you have to let me do this. That wasn't what I was doing, because I needed to be there for the family, so I didn't want to cause controversy. Then the nice part about the end of this story, which is different from other stories, is that when I finished and I gave the hesped, and of course I quoted from texts and I used all kinds of things, and I talked about her relationship to the community and everything. It was clear that I was the rabbi of the congregation, of the community. And at the end, the rabbi didn't come up to me. There was a rabbi, there's not always a rabbi there, but he was a rabbi from the Chevra Kadisha. And he went up to one of the members of the family and he said, she's that lady rabbi from North Tel Aviv, right? And she said, yes. Like she was like nervous about saying yes. She said, well, tell her she did a very fine job. And that was a good story. I've had stories where I had to do the ceremony for a close friend of mine who died. And as I was speaking, I could see the aggressiveness, the body language of the rabbi who was responsible for the funeral, and he was starting to approach me. He like was making steps towards me, and my husband of beloved memory said he saw the whole thing, and he just stepped in front of him to stop him from approaching me. And he said to me after the ceremony, he said, "I swear, I think he was going to push you right into the grave." He was so furious. And I've had other awkward situations, and I've had also it's difficult. It's difficult because in life cycle ceremonies outside of bar and bat mitzvahs, right? But marriages, when we officiate at a wedding, our couples have to get married either in Cyprus, which is one of the easy ways to do it, or in the States, or they have other ways of going around it. Sometimes even couples will want to have a ceremony and they won't want to register at all as being married. We do thousands upon thousands of weddings. I don't have those statistics anymore, which is fantastic. And it's opened the door for all kinds of alternative ceremonies. And I think that's our influence as a movement. So yes, it is challenging, but you learn how to maneuver and navigate within a framework, and to do your best under those, challenges.
Friends, we have time for one more question, and this is a hard one. Okay, I got lots like on forum here. Oh, okay.
We did talk Friday night, but can you expand on the Cyprus thing? Because that's what the family is doing now.
Right. What you do, they go, my daughter did this. My eldest daughter wanted me to officiate at her wedding. And so she knew the wedding wouldn't be recognized by the state. So they took their honeymoon in Cyprus, and they just did a civil ceremony there. It's almost like a industry there. It used to be a big industry. I think now Israelis are branching out. But there was a time, like in the 80s, I would say, where Cyprus was the location. And they had like these whole packages. They had like honeymoon packages, come get married in Cyprus. And so you go through the whole registration. When you come back, I mean, it's the absurdity of it, right? And you come back and you just register as being married. Couples that I married, that I officiated at their weddings before I moved to Israel in 1983, if they came to Israel, they would be recognized as being married because the state recognizes marriage licenses from abroad.
Friends, we have, that was going to be the penultimate question right there. We're going to let this, we've got time for just a minute or two.
Okay.
Just a quick question. Is there any kind of synergy with the conservative movement about, shared ideals,
There's a lot of...
Not that we would vote on the conservative side, but the conservative temple voting.
Yeah.
Is that like
yeah, of course there is. There's a lot of I can't remember the word in English, cooperation. There's a lot of cooperation between all the liberal movements. There's also the humanistic, there's the humanistic Jewish movement, and there are all kinds of like different things popping up in Israel today. And the liberal movements, they know that to cooperate together makes their voices stronger. Now, we don't agree on everything. We still have some ideological differences, but when it comes to bringing about change, there's a lot of cooperation. Yes, yes.
Okay. This is, I think it would, my opening words were borne out in terms of the different levels that Rabbi Shiryon has brought to us, both from the history, the importance of of voting, for sure, but also the personal level of the experiences, and whether it's for funerals or weddings, the feelings that are there on the part of liberal Jews, on the part of rabbis as well. This is really wonderful. I thank you so very, very much for bringing all these different aspects to our congregation. We've learned a great deal this morning and on Friday night. And we partnered with Temple Emmanuel Westfield, a nice group of people. Had a number of congregants there. And so now, Beth, we head on to the.
Well, we're gonna go ahead and help ourselves to some food, have a seat, and then by 10:30, air is looking to be brought in. And then after he speaks, I'm sure there'll be time for more.
Okay, there may be
Great.
some time for more questions.
Stay within the religious school hours.
Right.
I expect religious school parents, but I don't think
Okay, very good. Let's all head in and Amy, do we have a piece of bread there for Ramonsi?
Test, test. It's hard to know either. Hang on a minute. You know, it's something. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. So, Amy, with the headphones, can you hear the voice on the microphone here? Do you hear this one? Microphone in the room? Or do you need more? More microphone or less microphone?
For all it's worth, I'm hearing you
Okay,
very well.
it's all good? Okay.
It's not, is it on, Amy? Pardon? The microphone? I think it's on. Is this thing on?
I can hear you from
Okay.
Israel.
Hello?
Hi,
Okay.
I can hear
Welcome
you from
everybody
Israel.
again. If you can hurry up and take a seat, because we have Yair from Israel and he's waiting. You can't hear me?
No, I'm good. If you
Still
can,
not
can you
on?
hear me?
Still not on.
Hi, can you folks hear me?
Hi. Can you hear me now? Oh,
I
it's a
can hear you.
Verizon.
Can you hear me?
Yes. It's a Verizon
Okay.
commercial. Can you hear me now? Oops. I lost my
Are you
screen.
are you speaking to me or are you speaking to?
I'm going to introduce
I can.
you. But I
Okay,
lost,
can you hear me? That's what I'm asking.
yes. I lost
Okay,
the
fine.
thing. I lost. Bear with me 1 second. Thank you so
I'm
much.
good.
I lost the email. There it is. Thank you so much. So this is, as you can see, Yair Lutstein. He visited with us last year when Arnie retired. And I just want to give you a quick intro, which is that I don't believe this is your second year of a 3-year term as chairperson. I don't know what year you're in.
I'm in the sixth.
Okay. For the IMPJ.
Or the sixth of six.
The
But who's
sixth of
counting?
six. Born in London, which is fascinating, grew up in Toronto, made Aliyah in 1979, has a really, really interesting military service, which I would love to hear more about someday. And since completing that, has invested much of his time on issues related to Jewish pluralism in Israel, served as president of Kehilat Kol Hanishama, which our congregation visited on at least one of our Israel trips, the largest Reform congregation in Jerusalem. And I don't know if you're still serving, you're still on the board of Artseinu. Artseinu, yes. And also is a board member of the Jewish National Fund, KKL. And if you could please describe all these abbreviations that we use, because as American Jews, we're just not up to it on it, up to date.
All right, I'm happy to do so. Am I ready to go?
You're ready to go. Thank you so much.
All right. So first of all, Shavua Tov to all of you. It's a pleasure and an honor, and it almost brought tears to my eyes when I heard at the beginning of this morning when you were asked how many of you have voted, and almost everyone put up their hands. And from my point of view, that is our partnership. Your ability to understand the importance of these elections for you, but mostly for us here in Israel. And it's your way of influencing what happens in Israel. So as I didn't see who introduced me, so you'll forgive me, but I am the chair of the Israeli Reform Movement, the IMPJ, and I also serve, and I've been doing that for almost 6 years. My second 3-year term ends at during this coming summer. And I've had the honor of being at the helm of the Israeli Reform Movement for almost the last 6 years, through tumultuous days and very turbulent days, from COVID through democratic crises to the war and many other things in between. And I want to say a few words about how I arrived at this on this journey. And like the person who introduced me mentioned, I think it was Amy. Was that Amy who introduced me? If not, then I apologize for getting that wrong. But before I do so, I just want to introduce another fellow that you might be able to see on the side of the screen. Is my friend Mike Nitzan. Mike Nitzan is here from Kibbutz Lotan in the Arava. He is originally from LA and made Aliyah about the same time I made Aliyah. And Mike is one of the founding members of the kibbutz. He's a real chalutz, a real pioneer who helped set up Kibbutz Lotan in the Arava, one of several reform kibbutzim in the state of Israel. And he right now is running our Israeli World Zionist Congress election campaign to ensure that the members of our communities in Israel get in touch with and our rabbis and our presidents, get in touch with folks like yourselves, but also friends and family members to ensure that they too take part in these elections, because we at the IMPJ and the folks at Arza and in other places around the world understand that it is so important for us, the IMPJ, we Reformed Jews, that folks like yourself take part in these elections. And so we're taking these elections very, very seriously. So let me tell you a little bit about, you heard about me. I was in the legal department in the Military Advocate General's Corps for 25 years. Completed my term of duty as a colonel, and my last job was the legal advisor to the IDF in the West Bank. And since then, about a week after I got out of before that, but one of the first jobs one of the tasks that I had while in the military was being sent for a year to the U.S. Army's School of Law in Charlottesville, Virginia. And during that year, I was sent there with my family, and we wanted something Jewish in our lives besides the American Army experience, and joined the only Jewish show in town at the time, which was Congregation Bet Israel with Rabbi Dan Alexander. I don't know if any of you folks have heard of him. And we had an incredible year in that synagogue in Charlottesville. And when we came back to Israel, we looked for something similar. And we joined Kol Shama here in Jerusalem. And the rest is history, because about 10 minutes after I got out of the military, the president of that synagogue came to me and said, "We'd like you to join the board." And that was probably the biggest mistake I made in my life. Having decided to join the board, I said yes, and within a year I was the president of that synagogue. And 4 years later, I became deputy chair of the national movement, the IMPJ. And during that time, and since then, I was the deputy chair for a couple of years, for a couple of terms, and I've now, as I've mentioned, been chair of the movement for 6 years. But during the time that I was was at as a deputy chair, I was approached and asked if I wanted to join the Israeli team of Reform Jews in the national institutions. And I think that it's important to understand what those national institutions are. But before I do that, I want to talk to you a little bit about the IMPJ and where we are today and the important things that we're doing. And I think that it's important for you. I heard it's a real honor for me, first of all, to be here. Arnie asked me to join you this morning, and I would do anything for Arnie. Arnie is perhaps the best friend that the IMPJ has anywhere. He is in our corner. He is the head of our Friends of the IMPJ, American Friends of the IMPJ. He does so much for us, and it's a real honor for me to be with you this morning, as it was almost a year ago in June, to be on that dais that I see in the picture of me at his farewell weekend. So, and it's even no smaller an honor to be following Rabbi Kinneret Shiryon, one of the true, if Mike is a pioneer in the Arava, Kinneret is a real pioneer in Israeli Reform Judaism and in many, many other ways, as a woman who has made a real mark on Israeli society, as someone who came from the United States and has made that mark. And I want to take the opportunity to say how honored I am to be following her this morning. So the IMPJ today, in my opinion, is punching well above its weight in Israeli society. We have 54 congregations from all the way up north in Nahariya and Rosh Pina and Kiryat Shmona, all the way down to the kibbutzim of the Arava that Mike lives in, and many communities, large and small, all around the country, Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, Haifa, Modi'in, Mevaseret Zion, and many smaller communities around the country. We have three vibrant Russian-speaking communities. We understand the need for Russian-speaking Olim from around the country who have arrived in the country and are not always welcomed with open arms by the authorities here because people question their Judaism. And they are looking for Yiddishkeit and and Judaism in their lives, and we provide that for them. We provide conversion. We, in the last 2 years, have provided on a national level more than 10% of all conversions done in the country. Last year was almost 400 reform conversions, and those conversions, are recognized by the state for the purposes of the law of return. We are also providing. We have a mechina, a pre-army gap year leadership program that runs in a wonderful spot in Jaffa and has a branch in the city of Cholon. We have a Tikkun Olam program called Keren Bekavod, which does remarkable work around the country. I'm sure that most of you have heard of IRAC, the Israel Religious Action Center, which takes its name in many senses, its English acronym from the RAC that you have, the American Reform Movement has in Washington. Excuse me, I'm going to take a gulp of something here. And we are doing amazing work fighting against racism, shared society, and I'll talk a little bit about that moving forward. We're fighting for our movement in the courts and in the streets. We have to fight often to get what is coming to us. We have to fight to have a semblance of, if all Orthodox rabbis in the country receive their salaries from the government, our rabbis weren't getting it, and we took it to the court and won. And as a result of that, some of our rabbis are also getting their salaries from the government. But those are not the only battles that we fight in the courts. We're fighting for Israeli democracy. On the day before this government was sworn in, my board decided that we were going to be part of the battle, the struggle to maintain Israel as a vibrant, truly democratic country. We were the only stream in Judaism in Israel to do so, and we are there to ensure that there is more than one way of being Jewish in the state of Israel. For you, it's a given. You understand that. In Israel, it's not a given, and we continue the fight for that on a daily basis. Since the war began, we have been remarkably busy. We have been dealing. Last night, I was at Hostage Square together with literally hundreds of Israelis at a Havdalah service run by 4 Reform rabbis. And from week to week, and we've been doing that since the second week of the war. There can be no victory in this war without the return of the hostages and the bodies of those who were abducted and killed or died while they were in captivity. That is a moral. There will be an eternal stain on any leader within our government who does not work for the return of those hostages. We have adopted hostages. We have communities that have hostages who are related to members, and I welcome you. I would welcome you with open arms to Hostage Square and other places to see the remarkable work we've done in that area. We've been working in shared society. We won an award from an organization called the Abraham Initiative, which deals with shared society in Israeli between Arabs and Jews, understanding that the day after is not only the day after in Gaza and not only the day after in Lebanon, but it's also the day after within the Green Line, within Israel, to understand that there is a need for us to be able to work together and live side by side with 20% of the people in this country who are not Jewish. And we have programs such as something called Shchenim, literally neighbors, in which some of our communities have families from our congregations who meet with similar families from communities within the Arab communities of the country. We have had other remarkable successes. We have interfaith programs, and I'm very, very proud of that. We were given this award as a result of the work that we've been doing for interfaith and shared society activities since the beginning of the war, something not to be taken for granted when there is an open atmosphere of animosity towards many of the people who are Arabs just because they're Arabs, but just because they're Christian Arabs or Muslim Arabs. Much of the activities that we do is done with the funding that we receive through the national institutions. And I'm going to segue into the work of the national institutions. And when we talk about the national institutions, we talk about the Jewish Agency for Israel, known by the acronym of JAFI, okay, which deals with a lot of things that relate to aliyah, immigration to Israel, but all the shinshinim. Have you had a shinshin in your community? Have you had one of the young people who comes in from Israel and works with the community for a year in their gap year before they go into the military? That the Jewish Agency deals with that. Another of the organizations is the WZO, the World Zionist Organization, which is important, which is essential for many other Zionist activities within the country. And I act today in the name of ARTSA and the other reform Zionist organizations in what is called KAKAL, Keren Kayemet LiYisrael, or the JNF, the Jewish National Fund. And that is not JNF USA. I know that some of you might have some questions about JNF USA, but KKL JNF is an organization that is deals with all the forestry issues in the country. It deals with water and irrigation, and it deals with creating a much more environmentally safe and country. I want to talk a little bit, and I can give you much more I will give you much more about KKL because I sit there as a deputy chair of the organization. But I want to also talk about what we get from sitting at that table. And Kinneret talked about two things, and I want to reiterate them. One of them is by being around those Zionist tables, it gives us an opportunity to influence with our values and our beliefs what happens around that Zionist table. And I'll give you some examples of the things that we deal with. The other thing that we get through being on that table is also budget. And it's not a dirty word in a country where we have to fight for every shekel that we get from the government. We have to take them to court with our incredible legal team at Iraq. And someone asked if we're working together with the conservative movement. I can tell you that in the national institutions, we work hand in hand with the conservative movement. We are friends, we are partners, and we work together in the same faction. The numbers, first of all, why do you need to take part in these elections? And what does it mean? Well, the World Zionist Congress is really sort of the parliament of the Jewish people. And what we find is that the way that there are 525 mandates to the World Zionist Congress, 200 of those are based on the distribution of Knesset members in the current Knesset. Okay? That means that today it would be based on the Knesset that we have today. Not a very good Knesset for our side of the political map. But the second largest number of mandates comes from the United States. And that is where it is essential that we do well in these elections. The numbers are daunting right now. And by the way, the other third, roughly, it's 200 from the Knesset, 152 from the United States, and the rest of the world, about 35 other countries, is 173 mandates. Those are large numbers, and we're going to continue the battles in those countries too. But I'm here to talk to you about the American Zionist movement elections that are taking place today and how important they are. They're the most important of the elections taking place around the world. The numbers have dropped, unfortunately, for Artsakh representation in the World Zionist Congress. If in 2015, Artsakh had 53 mandates, in 2020, although their numbers dropped, the number of people who voted for them rose, the number of mandates, relatively speaking, dropped from 53 to 39. That's a major drop. It happened because there were many more people who voted in the last election, but this year, the numbers are daunting. Okay, and I just got the latest numbers as of, in 2020, all told, 123,575 people. 123,575 people voted, all told, during 10 weeks of voting. As of Friday, 96,000 had already voted after 2.5 weeks. That means that there is it's a result of the war in Israel. It's a result of the politics and the battles that are taking place within Israeli society about the democratic nature of this country. And I think it also has to do with the fact that there is a lot of concern within the American Jewish community about what's happening in Israel. And so the numbers are very large. And we have very, very difficult rivals in these elections. I'll show you a video clip of one of them in a little bit, because I think it's important for you to understand what they think about us. What am I doing and my friends doing in the National Institution? What am I doing as Deputy Chair of KKL, of Karen Kayemet Israel JNF? So to give you an example of some of the issues that we're dealing with is gender equality, of bringing women empowerment and bringing budgets for that within Israel and abroad. What we've now been able to do is start changing the equilibrium, and monies from organizations like Karen Kayemet are now going from Israel to Jewish communities around the world. So for instance, in 2025, on the issue of gender empowerment, we have developed a budget line of 2 million shekels. That's roughly $600,000 for women empowerment and the ability and their connection to their Zionism. That's not all reform, but we're fighting for part of that, those budgets to be for reform leadership programs for women. We have become, in Karen Kayemet, one of the most important environmental and climate conscious organizations in the country. We're on the vanguard of desertification of the country, and we're teaching countries around the world to do that. We've raised the budget on climate from Karen Kayemet from 5 million shekels when this term in 2020 began to almost 100 million shekels a year this year. We're building major projects to deal with climate change centers that is now on the verge of being opened near the Sea of Galilee. Bedouin tree planting. There's complaints that Karen Kayemet plants trees too close to Bedouin communities in the Negev. I have been involved personally in ensuring that there is no confrontation between Jews and who are or between Karen Kayemet and those tree planting and the Bedouins who live in the Negev. to ensure that the trees that are planted are far away enough from the living communities of those Bedouins. We have stopped land purchases over the Green Line. There was an attempt to renew those land purchases about 6 years ago. We got wind, and that was done clandestinely. We got wind of that, and through our political power, the political power that you provide us, we were able to say, this is not going to happen. And as of this speaking, of this writing, there has not been a renewal of purchases of land over the Green Line. Without ourselves, myself being at the table as one of the board members and as a deputy chair, we have 4 of 37 board members who are Reform. Without us being there, we would not have the clout to be able to push that policy. Education. We're developing education for pluralistic Jewish education within Israel and for pluralistic Jewish leadership, Zionist leadership education outside of Israel. And we're succeeding with that. And again, none of this could be done without your help. I want to show you a clip now. I hope it comes up, and tell me whether you hear it. I'm going to share something, and you'll forgive the shock value of this, but you just have to understand who our rivals are. Tell me if you see this. Can you see this?
Care about Eretz Yisrael? Of course you do. You have visited here dozens of times. You daven for Eretz Yisrael every day. You may have learned in yeshiva here. You may have children who learn in yeshiva here right now. You may even live here. Perhaps you give tzedakah here in Eretz Yisrael. You may even own an apartment here. If you really care, then we need your help. Did you know that there's a small group of Jews living outside of Israel? And I'm not talking about Torah Jews like you and me, that have tremendous control over many critical issues here in Eretz Yisrael that impact Klal Yisrael every single day. This is something that most from Jews don't know about, but really need to hear. This small group has a major influence in what happens at the Kaisel. Who can convert to Yiddishkeit, public transportation on Shabbos, kashrut standards in Eretz Yisrael, yeshiva bachim serving in the army, and even kosher cell phones, and much, much more. You are invested and involved in Eretz Yisrael, but you are powerless in the biggest decisions that affect it, all because of a small group of Jews in America that has too much power. Will you just stand by and let that happen? Are you ready to change that? Before the State of Israel was established, the WZO was created in order to focus on the creation of a Jewish state. When the State of Israel came into being in 1948, the WZO transitioned into an extremely powerful entity that represents world Jewry's position on key issues. The WZO consists of major Israeli organizations and agencies, like the Kakao, the Jewish National Fund, which buys and develops the land of Israel, and the Jewish Agency, which oversees Aliyah activities. Today, the JNF is not just about planting trees in Israel. The Jewish Agency is no longer just about bringing Jews and encouraging them to make Aliyah. Today, these major Israeli organizations have been pushing a hidden agenda that gets imposed on Israeli society every single day. And all of their activities, strategies, and budgets are all controlled by the World Zionist Congress. It's time to stop letting major decisions about Eretz Yisrael be determined by people who oppose Torah values, people who don't appreciate or honor the Kedusha of our land. Every 5 years, the World Zionist Congress holds an open election to choose around 500 people to represent world Jewry, which infects every aspect of Israeli society. Over the past 30 years, the WZO has been taken over by left-wing groups who have ignored the cries of the Torah world to stop the harmful policies against our values, communities, and Mekaymes HaKadoshim. Finally, in 2020, under the guidance of our Gedolim, a small group championing Torah values and the Kedusha of Eretz Yisrael mobilized major American frum communities and garnered enough votes to secure a significant role towards accurately representing diaspora Jewry in the World Zionist Congress. Now we are not silenced anymore, but we still have a long way to go. The World Zionist Congress continues to control powerful entities and to influence major decisions in Israel. And they claim to represent the Jews of America, including you. Do you want to continue to let them be your voice, or do you want your representatives to reflect your Torah values, priorities, and interests? It's up to you.
So did you manage to hear that? I can't hear you there, but I'm hoping that you managed to understand the rivals that we have and what they think about us as liberal Jews living in Israel and those of the liberal Jews living in America. It's those kind of rivals who came onto the front, onto the field, into the arena 5 years ago and made a major change, and they're trying to make further inroads into the AZM, the American Zionist Movement elections. They're trying to make inroads into the elections in other places around the world. And it's imperative that we bring out our vote in your communities. And I heard the rabbi, the folks speak. Amy spoke, if I'm not mistaken, it was Amy at the beginning of this presentation about the need not only for yourselves to vote, but it's the need for every one of you to go home and ask a friend, a relative, someone else to take that 5 minutes and the $5 it takes to vote and support what we all believe in, our beliefs, our interests, to ensure that we can continue doing the holy work that we are doing in the national institutions, that we are able, through the work of in the national institution, to also support the work that the Israeli Reform Movement is doing in Israel, and through the national institutions to bring back some of the funding to American and global Reform Judaism, and not only Reform Judaism, but to Jews around the world. It is a mitzvah to do this, and I implore you to continue your support for what we're doing. I'd be happy to answer questions if that you have any. I want to just say one other thing. Someone mentioned Kinneret mentioned something about funerals and the difficulty and the successes that she had. And it'll be my takeaway. On the first day of the war, on October 7th, a young man by the name of Yanai Kaminka, a member of one of our synagogues in a small town called Tzur Hadassah, was killed in battle in a base called Zikim, not far from Ashkelon. He was a real hero. And his parents asked that he be buried in a reform ceremony. And this is part of the inroads that we're making, where we're punching above our weight in Israeli society.
We have time for one question, I think, at this time, of Rabbi Katz here. And does anybody have a question before we conclude our... Oh, I'm so sorry.
I'm sorry. Please finish the story.
Yeah, so the story was that Rabbi David Azulai from our community, from Kinneret's community in Modi'in, was asked to oversee the ceremony. He did it in the most remarkable way. He did it in the most inviting and cooperative way with the family. And people, the 1,000 people who came to that funeral were amazed to see a rabbi who is not a regular Israeli Orthodox rabbi running the ceremony. It is another way in which we have an ability to show that we are part of Israeli society and that we're deepening our influence on Israeli society. And it's through the national institutions that we can even further deepen that influence. And I want to thank each and every one of you for coming out this morning, and each and every one of you for the support that you have already given to Artza in these elections, or that you will be giving. Toda rabah and Shavua Tov to all of you. Happy to answer any questions if you might have, if there's enough time.
Thank you. I apologize for interrupting the story. We do have time for at least one more question. We were going to conclude at 11, but does anybody have a question? We're so appreciative. Yes.
When I look at Kaiflix.com and I see Israeli television, I see shows like Shtisel or Shabbat Nakim. All the portrayal of religion is typically from an Orthodox perspective. I'm curious about whether the reform movement in Israel has connections with the Ministry of Culture, trying to promote some films or TV shows that would give a perspective of women rabbis throughout the world, from the reform movement to Lou Greenberg, portraying some sort of different view than what we see of the orthodoxy. Is there any connections there with with film and TV?
I'm trying to. I'm not sure whether we've done a good enough job on that, but we're thinking about it. I'm in the process of leading a strategic work plan to see how our movement looks like in 2030. And we had a weekend away last weekend, not this weekend, the weekend before. And one of the ideas that was bandied about during that weekend was the need to find new ways to, such as cultural ways, to also move, to set up our own news channel, okay, that would bring in news of the successes of our communities around the country, amongst news about the war or news about the government, and in that way also influence. And what you're thinking, the way you're thinking is also a way that's important. We have to I think that there are more and more Israelis, like Kinneret said, who, if they in the past said that the synagogue they don't go to is the Orthodox synagogue, I'm happy to say that in many cases, secular Israelis are saying the synagogue that I don't go to is the Reform synagogue, and that's where I want to have my children's bar mitzvah with midor ledor, with a transfer of the Sefer Torah on the bima from one person, from one generation to another, something that you don't find in other communities around the country. So yes, I think that's a wonderful idea, and we have many creative people within our communities.
Thank you so much. There's a wonderful, wonderful question. I'd like to just call upon to word of gratitude here for Beth and the committee for creating this weekend. Honestly, it's really wonderful. And Beth, if you come up here at this moment, and you're going to be thanked, and Rabbi Shiryon as well. And we've had quite some really wonderful sessions.
So I want to thank you, Yair. I'm Beth Livranchuk. I was emailing with
Sorry,
you.
I apologize for calling you Amy. So Beth,
That's okay.
thank you. Sorry, I wasn't sure.
There's far worse things you could call me. Anyway.
Okay.
So I just want to thank everybody, especially our speakers. And thank you so much, Yair. And thank you so much, Rabbi. It's really been a wonderful treat. And again, please, if you voted, that's wonderful, but we can't stop there. Everybody you know who's Jewish, who believes in Zionism, to cut to the chase, is 18 by June 30th. They can vote. It costs them $5. If there are any logistical problems, tell them to contact me. They can contact the temple office. We have paper ballots. We are willing to go to people's homes if they are not able to get to us to help them vote. So please let us know. Excuse me? Oh, we're going to be writing postcards. There's also the day of services next week, next Sunday. There's, I understand, millions of activities planned. I'm doing a sales pitch. But one of the things is we're going to write postcards to the congregation to get them to vote. We find that people don't answer the phone anymore, so we're going to use the good old U.S. mail. So we have a postcard for every single temple family. It will have the QR code on it to make it easy for people to vote. And you can put your personal notes on them. So please come and do that and vote and get your family to vote. Thank you. And thank you to Rabbi Katz for bringing this wonderful speaker. Thank you to Andrea for all of your support. And Amy, of course, and the custodians, and our team. And I'm not, because at my age, I'm not going to remember all the names. I'm not going to name the names. So I've reached that point. So
Thank you, friends. Goodbye.